All persons charged are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. This chapter summarizes what appears in 911 audio, body-worn camera reports, and official documents. No graphic detail is included. It begins with routine, a quiet apartment complex in Palm Beach County, Florida, late afternoon light on a stairwell, a motion sensor waking up as someone crosses a kitchen. According to the case file, the interior security system, installed to record movement, captures a 27-year-old mother, Rashan Gatlin, walking into the kitchen. In the stillness of ordinary sounds, a new sound interrupts, a phone dialing 3 numbers. A call connects to 911. The dispatcher's voice arrives steady and practiced, the kind that meets crisis with clear steps. The caller identifies herself and says her 3-year-old daughter is hurt. The dispatcher asks the anchoring questions. Where are you? Is she awake? Is she breathing? And keeps the caller on the line, guiding her through basic care while help is sent. From that moment, 2 timelines run at once. Inside the apartment, a mother following instructions. Outside, patrol units closing distance. Deputies arrive quickly. Their first priority is simple and absolute. Find the child and stabilize the scene. They identify who is inside, separate people for safety, and make a path for medics. In the living room, they find a toddler who is awake and responsive. Paramedics move in with calm efficiency, preparing transport to a pediatric hospital. Even in the churn of activity, deputies narrate for each other in short, clipped phrases. Who has the door, who has the child, who is calling the hospital, so that everyone stays on the same page. The apartment is ordinary in the way most homes are: a couch with a blanket folded over the arm, a hallway holding a bathroom, a kitchen with the day's dishes drying. On the bathroom floor, officers note a large kitchen knife and mark it for collection. They don't argue theories at the scene. They record what is present so the timeline can be verified later. Outside, blue lights spill across the parking lot. Neighbors step to their railings with the instinctive hush that follows any emergency, and deputies keep a respectful perimeter so medics can work without distraction. Back on the 911 line, the dispatcher's questions remain even, never rising above calm. Why did this happen? Is there more danger in the apartment? Can you tell me exactly what you see? The caller's answers are halting and uncertain. She mentions she has to call the child's father. The dispatcher urges her to stay on the line so life-saving steps aren't interrupted. Minutes later, the child is on the way to the hospital, accompanied by professionals who will speak a different language. Vitals, transport time, receiving facility, body-worn camera audio captures the steady cadence of the first hour. Deputies confirming the address plate. One officer guiding another through a narrow landing. A quick assessment to make sure no other people are injured. A reminder to preserve areas that might hold evidence. A supervisor arrives and asks the question supervisors always ask: who's with the child? Who's got the scene? Who's with her? Roles settle. The mother is placed in handcuffs without incident, standard while investigators determine what happened, and escorted outside to a patrol car. In the back seat, she is mostly quiet, distraught, and under continuous observation. Information gathers in small, practical pieces. A deputy radios in the description of the knife. Another notes that interior cameras appear to have recorded relevant moments before and after the call. Someone secures the DVR or cloud credentials so the footage can be logged into evidence later. The hallway fills and empties in cycles. Medics moving equipment, detectives stepping in, then out, to photograph rooms as they find them. Evidence technicians measuring distances and angles that will later appear in a report's neat margins. A sedan pulls into the lot. Basilio, the mother's boyfriend and the child's father, steps out, confused by the lights and tape. A deputy meets him at the curb and keeps the conversation simple. Your daughter has been taken to a pediatric hospital. She was awake and talking when we saw her. Your partner is being detained while detectives sort out exactly what occurred. The deputy asks what he can share about the family's recent days. Basilio explains that Rashan has a recent history of mental health treatment, including a hospital stay and medication. He says that earlier this very day, when he briefly left home, everything seemed normal. Last week had been different. There were worrying statements, so he sought help. He had not heard, he says, about voices until today. Detectives arrive and begin the slow work that turns a chaotic hour into a clear timeline. First, they ensure everyone's immediate safety and confirm the child's status with the hospital. Stabilized. Next, they move deliberately through the apartment, photographing and measuring before anything is moved. They collect the kitchen knife. They note the placement of the phone. They log the security camera angles and the times each one activated. They coordinate with dispatch to line up timestamps. The exact second the 911 call began, the moment the first unit went en route, the minute medics reached the door. In the patrol car, the mother shifts uncomfortably and asks about the handcuffs. An officer checks them, explains policy, and repositions for comfort while maintaining safety. It is not a dramatic moment. It is procedural, one of 1,000 small acts that keep everyone safe while the larger questions wait for a calmer room. That room is an interview space at the substation. A table, 2 chairs, a recorder's red light. Detectives read Miranda rights and ask if the mother wishes to speak. Her responses are quiet. Asked why this happened, she says she does not know. Asked what she was thinking, she mentions voices. When? How often? What did they say? The answers are limited and vague. When detectives ask about medication, she says she did not take it that day. Her memory about other days is uncertain. The detectives' tone stays measured. They do what trained investigators do: clarify, confirm, return to concrete points that can be tested against logs and video. While that interview proceeds, another deputy speaks briefly with a teenager connected to the household. The teen admits he had felt on edge once or twice in the past, a general fear that something might go wrong, though nothing had. The deputy writes it down without drawing conclusions. Context is noted, evidence decides. At the hospital, the update is the one every viewer hopes for. The child has been treated and stabilized. Within days, she will be released to family. When detectives later visit to check on her welfare, they keep the tone gentle and age-appropriate. She is not pressed, she is a child. She mentions ordinary things: band-aids, pets, play. The visit ends quickly, by design. Inside the evidence unit, technicians begin copying the apartment's motion-activated video to a secure drive and logging its metadata. The footage is not entertainment. It is a clock that shows who moved where and when. Paired with the 911 recording, dispatch logs, and medical records, it will turn a narrative into a timeline. By the end of hour 1, the case has moved from emergency to process. The child is in medical care. The apartment is secured. The mother is in custody, advised of her rights, and either speaking or not under those rights. The boyfriend has been briefed and is on his way to the hospital. A binder is already forming: call sheets, CAD printouts, scene diagrams, property receipts, and a list of interviews to conduct next. All persons charged are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. This chapter follows what appears in 911 audio, officer reports, hospital updates, and recorded interviews. No graphic detail is included. The first hour closed with the apartment secured, the child en route to a pediatric hospital, and the mother, Rashan Gatlin, detained without incident. The next phase looks slower from the outside, but inside the tape line it moves with a rhythm shaped by training. Document, verify, preserve, and only then conclude. In the parking lot, blue and white lights held a soft boundary that neighbors instinctively respected. A few residents drifted toward the commotion. Deputies motioned them back with brief, polite directives: enough distance to protect privacy, enough space for responders to move. Inside the patrol car, Rashan shifted, asked about the handcuffs, then fell quiet again. An officer checked the restraints, adjusted for comfort while maintaining safety, and kept eyes on her. It was unremarkable as a moment, and precisely because of that, it was correct. A sedan rolled in, Basilio, the boyfriend and father of the 3-year-old, returning to a scene he didn't expect. A deputy met him before the stairwell to keep news controlled and clear. The information he got was concise: your daughter has been taken for treatment. She was awake and responsive when medics departed. Detectives are investigating. Rashan is detained while facts are gathered. The deputy asked what he could safely share: recent days, any concerns, anything unusual in the last week. Basilio described prior mental health treatment, a recent hospital stay, prescribed medication, and a stretch of days that had felt normal until today. He said he had not heard about voices before. His words were logged, not judged. Back upstairs, detectives moved in a grid that kept shoes off evidence and hands off anything not necessary to touch. An interior camera system, motion-activated, had been installed before this day. Now it became a clock. When a person entered a room, when a light changed, when a door opened and closed. A technician imaged the system, preserving timestamps and original files, while another cataloged the angles: kitchen, living room, hallway. None of it was played for drama in the moment. All of it was secured to be compared, later, to dispatch logs and officer notations minute by minute. On a countertop, a phone rested where dispatchers heard the first call. In the bathroom, a large kitchen knife lay where officers had first noted it. Both were photographed and bagged. The language in evidence handling is intentionally plain. Where found, how found, by whom, and at what time. It is the opposite of speculation by design. News from the pediatric facility remained steady. The child was evaluated and stabilized. A detective called the receiving nurse to confirm status and anticipated next steps. Nothing more would be said publicly. Privacy laws are strict for minors, but the line in the case log mattered enormously: stable. Days later, the update would read that she was released to family. At the substation, detectives prepared an interview room. A table, 2 chairs, a recorder with a red light that blinks at the same pace in every jurisdiction. Rashan was advised of her Miranda rights. She agreed to speak. The tone stayed even. Questions were simple and specific. What happened today, from your perspective? I don't know. What were you thinking before the call? Something told me to do it. What do you mean by something? Voices. How long have you heard them? A while. Are you hearing them now?
No.
Did you take your medication today?
No.
The detectives circled details that can be checked against clocks: time of day, where she was before the call, whether anyone else was present, when she last took medication. When answers turned vague, they didn't press for theory. They returned to items the timeline could hold: the call, the rooms, the sequence. They did not raise their voices. The recorder captured a conversation with pauses, not confrontations. Elsewhere, a deputy spoke with a teenager connected to the household. The teen admitted he had felt uneasy once or twice in the past, like something might go wrong, without any incident actually occurring. He described it as a presence feeling, not an event, but a worry. The deputy wrote it as context, the way a map shows terrain even if you're only measuring distance. Evidence technicians built a chain of custody that would look unremarkable to a layperson and essential to a court. Photographs, measurements, property receipts, signatures at each transfer. The 911 audio and dispatch logs were requested and attached. Body-worn camera timestamps were synced with the apartment footage. Any difference between clocks, a few seconds here, a minute there, was noted, because precision is not only about what happened, it's about showing your math. A supervisor reviewed the preliminary packet. The outline hardened into a sequence. A motion camera sees ordinary movement. A 911 call begins. Deputies arrive and locate a conscious child. Medics transport. A scene is preserved. A mother is detained. An interview references voices and the absence of medication. A boyfriend describes prior mental health treatment and a seemingly normal morning. A teenager describes a nonspecific past worry. Evidence is logged. Outside, the scene remained controlled. A neighbor asked what happened and got the standard respectful answer: there's an active investigation and a child receiving care. Another neighbor began recording on a phone and was asked to remain outside the taped area. The objective was not secrecy, it was order. Investigations are precise work that don't benefit from crowds or commentary. Back at the curb, Rashan shifted again. An officer checked on her. She asked to move her hands forward. Policy did not allow it. The officer explained, adjusted the cuffs slightly, and stepped back. It was not a turning point. It was a line in a log. Detainee monitored, restraints checked, no medical complaint. Days later, when the child was released, investigators conducted a welfare check. The visit was short by design. The little girl's attention lived where children's attention should: Band-Aids, toys, a game of hide and seek. The detective let the conversation drift to play, observed that the child was home and cared for, and concluded. The line in the report was spare and hopeful: welfare, satisfactory. What drives a person's actions on any given day is often the first thing an audience wants to know, and the last thing an investigator can responsibly say. Detectives did not write down motives, they wrote down times. They didn't diagnose, they documented that a partner reported recent mental health treatment and prescriptions, and that the subject herself referenced voices and not taking medication that day. They didn't speculate about intention, they logged what the 911 call captured: what interior cameras showed, and what hospital staff confirmed about the child's condition. That is how a file becomes a framework, by trading sensational questions for verifiable ones, and by letting clocks, not commentary, carry the weight. Toward charging decisions, the preliminary investigative package is nearly complete. The recordings are preserved. The items are logged. Interviews are transcribed. Supervisors have reviewed probable cause summaries. Prosecutors will read the same pages the audience wishes they could see and make decisions that move a case from reports to court filings. The core facts are these: a 911 call, a rapid response, a child found conscious and later stabilized, a scene preserved and measured, a mother detained and interviewed, background information about recent mental health treatment, and a set of time-stamped videos that anchor a minute-by-minute sequence. What comes next leaves the apartment and enters the courthouse. Charges, hearings, and the rules that protect both truth and rights. All persons charged are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. This chapter summarizes what appears in 911 audio, officer reports, and court filings. No graphic detail is included. The emergency phase ended with a child stabilized, an apartment sealed, and a preliminary file assembled. The 911 recording, dispatch and arrival times, body-worn camera logs, interior motion camera clips, scene photographs, hospital confirmations, and interviews. What happens next looks quieter, but it matters just as much. Investigators draft a probable cause summary that ties the day to clocks, not opinions. What was called in, what was observed, what was collected, and what people said when they were interviewed. That packet goes to the state attorney's office, where lawyers decide which charges to file and how to proceed. According to the record, Rashan Gatlin is charged with attempted first-degree murder with a deadly weapon and aggravated child abuse. She pleads not guilty and remains in the Palm Beach County Jail awaiting further proceedings. Those two words, not guilty, aren't a story. They are a legal stance that triggers the rest. First appearance, bond decisions, discovery, motions, and, if necessary, a trial. In early hearings, judges typically confirm identity, advise the defendant of the charges, and consider public safety conditions. In cases involving a minor, standard orders include no contact with the child, no return to the residence without permission, and compliance with any protective injunctions already in place. These are safeguards while the case moves forward. They are not findings of guilt. Discovery opens like a curtain on paperwork. The state produces the 911 audio, CAD logs, certified Bodycam files, photographs, chain of custody sheets for the recovered knife and the interior camera system, medical documentation of the child's condition, released under privacy protections, interview recordings and transcripts, and any expert reports. The defense can inspect physical evidence, request copies, and file motions about what should or shouldn't be admitted at trial. Authenticating the interior footage, proving it's original, time-synced, and unaltered, draws a straight line back to the quiet work done in the first 24 hours, preserving metadata, imaging devices, recording hash values, and logging every handoff. It's how the state shows its math, and how the defense can test it. Because the incident includes references to voices and recent mental health treatment, lawyers may ask the court for competency evaluations. Competency is about now. Can the defendant understand the proceedings and assist counsel? If experts say no, the case pauses for treatment until competency is restored, then resumes. That is separate from an insanity defense or any mental health mitigation that might be raised later. Different questions, different standards, decided in different phases. No conclusion is assumed at this stage, only that the system has tools to check capacity and fairness. While the legal machine turns, a different track centers the child. Law and policy limit identifying details. Victim advocates coordinate with the family, explain court dates in plain language, and connect caregivers with counseling. If child protection reviews are required, they run in their own confidential forum. The goal is simple and stubborn, a stable routine that helps healing, sleep, play, school, while adults handle legal work in rooms the child doesn't have to enter. Motions begin to shape what a jury would hear. Lawyers may ask to exclude or admit categories of evidence, challenge the admissibility of statements if Miranda is at issue, or request continuances for additional testing. Judges rule on admissibility, not guilt. Each order defines the edges of the story as the law allows it to be told. Public updates, if any, stay limited to what's filed in open court. Hearing dates, motion titles, orders that don't identify the minor. Agencies remind the public that the defendant is presumed innocent and that many details are restricted by statute, not preference. Withholding speculation is not secrecy. It is the backbone of a fair process. The interior cameras matter for two reasons. First, they provide precise timestamps that can be synchronized with the 911 call and arrival times, shrinking the room for guesswork about sequence. Second, they underline how modern homes are documented by devices families install for their own reasons. Turning that into courtroom-ready evidence demands careful handling that began the day of the incident. When done correctly, a jury can evaluate the footage with confidence. When not, attorneys will raise valid questions about authenticity. Here, the record shows technicians doing the unglamorous steps that make or break reliability months later. From this point, the path forks in familiar ways. The state can continue to trial. The parties can negotiate a resolution, one that weighs evidence, expert evaluations, and the wishes of the child's caregivers. Pre-trial diversion is unlikely in violent felonies, but mental health treatment conditions can appear in agreements or sentencing if supported by law and fact. Whatever the outcome, lawful protections for the minor usually extend beyond any final court date. If a trial occurs, the rules are the same everywhere. The state carries the burden to prove each charge beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense has no burden to prove anything. Jurors are instructed to set aside sympathy and bias, consider only admitted evidence, and keep the presumption of innocence alive unless and until the burden is met. Those instructions are not ceremonial. They're the reason the system holds up under the weight of hard cases. It's easy to think of a case as paper sliding across desks, but people stand around the file. Dispatchers who keep callers engaged when every second counts. Patrol officers who use the same calm phrases 100 times because calm is contagious. Medics who focus on pediatric vitals and nothing else. Detectives who accept, "I don't know," as an answer to be recorded, not challenged into fiction. Prosecutors who build timelines out of recordings instead of rhetoric. Defenders who insist the rules apply the same on hard days as on easy ones. Advocates who remember to bring crayons because a child's healing needs more than a chart. Their work rarely trends. It's how cases stay honest. Three things remain steady as the docket moves. The child stays at the center, with safety and support as the priority. The evidence, not opinions, decides what a courtroom is allowed to hear. And the presumption of innocence is not a slogan. It protects every person until a plea or verdict changes it. That's where this story responsibly pauses. A child home and cared for, a defendant in custody, pleading not guilty, a community measuring the distance between ordinary and urgent in minutes, and then in months of methodical law. If new, verified filings change the record, an order on a key motion, a competency ruling, a plea, or a verdict, this narrative should be updated to reflect facts, not speculation. Until then, let the clocks and documents speak louder than rumor, and let the child's routine be the loudest thing in the room. Subscribe for verified case timelines. No gore, no speculation.